The early 70s saw a collective outrage in the black community after years of discrimination and the assassinations of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. And those events prompted black leaders from differing political ideologies to come together to try and reach a consensus.
It led to an historic gathering of black leaders in which they tried to channel that rage into political action. As WGN's Tanya Francisco reports, it took place in our neighboring city to the east, Gary, Indiana.
I remember that it was a lot of people at Westside.
Westside High School in Gary, Indiana was the hub of the black universe in May of 1972.
I remember the signs telling where people were from: Mississippi, Michigan, Indiana.
Some even came from as far away as Hawaii, Florida, and California.
Too many people have their eyes on Gary today.
A young Karen Freeman attended with her parents.
Even as a 12-year-old, I understood what they were talking about.
We must emerge from this convention with an independent national black political agenda, a dynamic program for black liberation that in the process will liberate all America from its current decadence.
The National Black Political Convention was hosted by Gary Mayor Richard Hatcher, one of only 2 black mayors of a major city at the time. He volunteered after no other city was willing to host the 10,000 attendees.
The convention will come to order.
The convention was organized by poet and activist Imamu Amiri Baraka and Congressman Charles Diggs Jr., the leader of the newly formed Congressional Black Caucus.
When we got there, it was just high energy.
David Greaves was a 26-year-old videographer and editor working with his father, William Greaves, to produce an 80-minute documentary on the 2-day convention called Nation Time.
It could be thought of as a radical way, but as a very straightforward way, talking to black people about black interests.
The convention attracted black leaders with vastly different political ideologies, like Coretta Scott King, Malcolm X's widow Betty Shabazz, and Black Panther co-founder Bobby Seale.
And we don't want just no words, we want some action and support.
And celebrities Harry Belafonte, Isaac Hayes, Richard Roundtree, and comedian and civil rights activist Dick Gregory, who was in the midst of a fast protesting the Vietnam War.
That's what this convention is all about, getting our minds together.
But one person missing was Shirley Chisholm, who was making her historic run for president as the first woman and African American. She decided to skip the convention when organizers couldn't decide if they would endorse her candidacy.
This document tells you why the man owes you reparation.
More than 3,300 delegates from just about every state in the country tried to reach a consensus around a black agenda on issues like affordable housing, improved health care, a guaranteed minimum wage, political representation, and many other pressing concerns.
We demand the eradication of heroin from the ghetto, now eating away at the vitals of black youth.
Reverend Al Sampson was one of those delegates.
It was a convention full of tension because people needed attention. And the value of the convention was folk came together and folks stayed together. And that meant people had to listen to each other.
Tension ran so high, at one point, part of the Michigan delegation, led by Coleman Young, who would go on to become mayor of Detroit, walked out.
It was really like putting together an orchestra. And the discussion and the tension was the script.
What time is it? When we come together, what time is it?
A young Reverend Jesse Jackson fired up the crowd with chants of Nation Time from Imamu Baraka's poem on black nationalism.
I am a black man, I want a black party. I do not trust white Republicans or white Democrats.
Northeastern Illinois University political science professor Bob Starks.
Black nationalism does not espouse black supremacy. It just simply says we want to be free, we want to control our community.
In later years, Reverend Jackson moderated his position on black nationalism and even mounted 2 runs for president in 1984 and 1988. But activists today are taking a cue from the 72 convention.
The Black Lives Matter movement is one of the things that came out of this whole convention. The idea that you continue protesting, because one of the demands on the part of the nationalists is that you never give up. You continue to fight.
Organizers also credit the convention with helping to almost triple the number of black elected officials in the country.
There was a group of youth that were inspired as a result of that 72 convention. Certainly I was one of them, but there were others.
Freeman Wilson would go on to become mayor of Gary from 2012 to 2019. Today, she's president and CEO of the Chicago Urban League.
I thought a lot of seeds had gotten planted. The genius of the convention was that people went away with a whole lot of information that they didn't have.
Glad that it has resurfaced now.
The film Nation Time, once considered too militant to be released, was recently uncovered in a Philadelphia warehouse, digitized and re-released in the midst of yet another highly charged political environment.
Every time I ask people, have they heard of the Black National Convention, they never heard of it.
Angela Ford recently uncovered several photos taken by an unknown photographer at the convention. She has posted them on her website, the Obsidian Collection, Digital Museum of Black History.
What it does is it allows a new generation to tell our stories. As we organize and deal with the politics of today, it's important they understand what successes their elders had and how they did it.
What time is it?
The convention adjourned without reaching a consensus, but a committee later published a 68-page national black agenda, which called for, among many things, more black representation in Congress. Other smaller black national political conventions were held years later, but none had the crowds or the impact of the 72 convention. Tanya Francisco, WGN News.
Very informative.
Impactful.
Thank you for that, Tanya.